welcome to Next 2.0 on WQLN PBS NPR. Next is produced by the Public's Voice Media. I am your host, Marcus Atkinson, with guest host Chuck Cammarata. If you want to know more about Next 2.0, you can go to Facebook and like the page. You can follow us on Instagram at Next 2.0 Erie. There you can keep up with upcoming show promos, events, and clips about what's next for our communities and our democracy. Thank you so much for tuning in. Chuck and I have three fabulous women with us in studio today. One is childless and has a cat. We hope you don't hold that against us. And so I want to give a formal introduction. And first we have to my left Miss Mary Wassell, who is the committee member of the Women's Freedom Rally, which is what we're talking about today, the legislative assistant for Representative Pat Harkins, and the chief marketing and communications officer at Parker Strategy Group. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
All right. And then we have Raven Clark Steves, co-chair of the Women's Freedom Rally, owner of Raven Clark Consulting. Raven, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
And we have a fan favorite, a young lady who has been on our show on multiple occasions, and we always appreciate her presence, Miss Kristy Gnibus. He's the chair of the Women's Freedom Rally and teacher and vice chair of the Erie Dems. Kristy, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
All right. So, Chuck, I actually want to start with you. You teed this up to give credit where credit is due. Tell us why you thought it was important to bring these ladies on and talk a little bit about the subject matter before we introduce people.
Well, I have two daughters and a wife, and I'm concerned about women's issues. And it seems to me like this is a pretty important time in our society in terms of fighting for women's rights and women's status and women's freedoms. So when Cindy Purvis called me, and Cindy's a hard person to say no to, so that was part of it as well. But when Cindy Purvis called me and said, would you give us some time for this? I thought, man, this is really timely, and this is stuff that really needs to be talked about, because there's so much stuff going on in society. We sometimes we're missing the big picture and issues that affect us all that are kind of beneath the surface of all the bluster. So I thought we should be talking about this, and so here we are.
Let's stay right here with Kristy. Then Kristy, talk about the event that is the subject today, what it's about, and how it came about. And then we'll go around the room and just ask each person why they got involved with this as well.
So we've done rallies and marches in the past, notably in 2022, right after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And it kind of took a lull after that. And after Biden stepped down and Harris stepped up, I thought, this is the moment. I mean, this is the time. Like this, we could elect the first woman president, and not just the first woman president, but the first woman of color. I mean, this is historic. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Like, this is the moment. And so I started talking to folks like Cindy and the folks here, and I what do you think? And I think everyone was really on board. And so we decided this is the time. We're going to have a rally. It kind of morphed into a few other things, but what we've settled on is we're at the convention center on September 28th at 1 p.m. and we're going to have room for 5,000 people.
Wow. So
this is going to be huge. We believe that there'll be people coming from out of town to be there. We're going to have a phenomenal speaker who is yet to be announced, but is a top tier speaker. So we're super excited about that. We also have some great local speakers as well. So right from our community, because we have some powerhouse women here.
Ooh, yeah.
And so we're going to be talking about things about childcare. We're talking about, of course, reproductive rights. We're going to be talking about the justice system as well for women. So there's housing, a lot of different issues that women face. So this is a powerful moment, and I think going to be a really powerful rally.
Raven, let's get you into this conversation. Talk about how you came on board with this, what your background is leading up to this, and just your overarching feeling about the purpose of this rally.
So, for context, my bachelor's degree is in political science, so I just love politics through and through. But I first got involved 2 years ago when we did the Women's March, when Selena King was chair, and I had a great time doing that. It was just like great energy, and I loved the idea of like rallying together, having this march right before Election Day, because this was back in 2022 when we had the gubernatorial elections. So it was a very important election. So it's just like this now in 2024. We have a very important election coming up. So I wanted to put the work in.
Excellent. And then Mary, same question.
Yeah, so I got involved, in politics. I kind of, dove head first in 2020. It was just kind of one of those things where I couldn't sit back anymore. It was Trump versus Biden, and I felt like I had to do something. The moment was calling me. And specifically with this woman's rally, I think one of the big things that I always have like in my head is that the statement, I have fewer rights than my mother. And that's such a powerful phrase, I feel like, and it's a very, it's a very powerful talking point and a very powerful statement. But when you really like take a moment to like think about it, you're like, holy shit. Like I literally, like, how is that possible? Yeah. So, I think that was one of the big things for me, is just thinking about that. And it was just, meeting the moment. I'm not going to be silenced. We're not going to be silenced. We're going to stand up and fight for our constitutional rights. And here we are today, still going at it.
I did a podcast on a different network, and it was entitled "White Women, Can We Talk?" And I went back into the history of white women from slavery going forward, and just this relationship between the patriarchy and everything else. And then I led it all the way up to voting rights, and obviously they came second to black men when it came to voting rights and things along those lines. And when I watched these women of the MAGA movement, and I say this sincerely because I don't take abused women lightly or abuse lightly, and to see women sit there as these men make the most disrespectful statements about women in their presence, you get that sense of an abused woman who has this misogynistic boyfriend or husband who almost brags about the fact that he mistreats her, and who almost shows off brazenly the fact that he can do and say whatever he wants because she's in submission. And I'm like, wow, what are you thinking when you're watching and listening to arguably some of the most blatant and flagrant misogynistic statements and dispositions that we've seen in modern day political history, as women are sitting around these candidates when they make the statements? Give me your thoughts on that. Mary, we'll start with you. I see you want to fire off, and then we'll go around.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't even know where to start, because it makes me so angry, because like you said, you hear these men make these statements, and women just sit back, and it's like, I get angry for them, because I'm like, say something, do something. I'm like, get in there. I'm like, no, that's not right. Like, it is 2024, and we need to start acting like it. Like, it's like the only thing that seems to be progressing forward is like the number, but like policies, laws, jokes about women, like all of those are stuck in the past. And it's like, hello, like, is no one like, let's look at the calendar year, let's do something. So it is really infuriating. And it's just one of those things. It's like, as women, it's like, we are empowered, like we should be empowered to stand up and say, no, that is not okay. And sometimes I feel like too, it can almost turn into, sometimes a gaslighting technique too. Cause if like if you stand up and say something, then, that person who made the joke will be like, oh, it was just a joke. And it's like, but it's never just a joke. It's not a joke. And especially today when laws and policies are being overturned, and, there's so much out there. It's like that. It's not okay. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, no, say something.
Right. I mean, Raven, let me get you in on this, because between the reversal of role and then you add the rhetoric to it, it is so obvious that this presidential candidate, his vice president candidate, and so many people in the party, there's a disdain for women there, and it is on display. What are your thoughts as you're listening to this and watching it play out?
It's just so sad to see that, like, there are women that support this, because I've never in, mind you, I haven't been alive for that long. I'm only 28, but I've never in my life heard like a candidate who just fires off the most like disgusting things about women in particular. And so I've never been able to wrap my mind around how some women could just like support that. But I mean, it is what it is. But this is why we organize. Like, this is, the purpose of one of the purposes of our organization is that, or of our organizing, is that we can come together, and that shows people that it's not like a disjointed, like, oh, some women might be okay with this, some women might be not, but they're quiet about it. We're coming together and we're being loud about the fact that we're not okay with this.
Kristy, I'm going to frame that question a little differently. In your opinion, how much of this is going to backfire on them with women who traditionally vote Republican, in your opinion?
How's it going to backfire on the women that are voting that way?
On the party, how much is this rhetoric going to backfire on Trump and the Republican Party with the women who traditionally vote Republican? Because they have to know, as they're doing these things and saying these things, it's like some of these, they may never tell their husbands, they may never tell their relatives and friends. Because remember, the first time Trump got elected, people were real like, yeah, I don't agree with what he's saying. And they went into the booth and they silently checked the box for Trump. Do you think some of this rhetoric is going to backfire on them?
I mean, I certainly think that's possible. I remember one time being at the Crawford County Fair, and a very red county, and I was at the Dem booth, and lots of snickering, lots of booing as people are passing by. And I remember one woman ran up to me and she goes, I'm not going to tell my husband, but I'm definitely voting for all of the Democratic candidates. And then she ran back up to her husband. I'm like, that is the strangest relationship. But I think that happens a lot. I think that happens a lot. But I think, so there is going to be some of that. I think we're going to see what that looks like, though, after we see the results of this election.
Yeah.
Like, how big is it? Because what I think, and I taught in a rural area, too. I taught out in Wattsburg for 8 years, and that's actually where I went to school. And now I'm seeing some of my former students who now are adults, and I see them falling into that same line of thinking, and I'm just like, no. And but I kind of understand, because it's a place of comfortability. Yeah. It's a place of, like, I grew up my whole life until I became an adult, parent, thinking that type of rhetoric was kind of normal, and all I wanted to do was to kind of fit in, right? And so I wanted guys to like me, and I wanted to feel good about myself, and I knew the only way to do that is when guys made those jokes, I would laugh with them, right? And so I think that, there's still a lot of catching up to do, and I see so many people falling back into that line like, oh, she doesn't speak for me. And I'm thinking, why not, though? Yeah. It's because they're listening to the people around them, and it's comfortable there.
And I think one of the big things, too, with our, with our rally and stuff is we're trying to also create a very safe space. So for those women that, maybe those women that are running up to Kristy and saying, oh, I'm voting Dem, but I'm not telling my husband, like, we have a place for you. Like, you can come to us. We will support you. We are here for you. And you don't need to be nervous or afraid or, tiptoe around. So we are creating a safe and inclusive space for everyone to join our movement.
I think one of the things that is underneath all of this thinking that we need to consider is that many of these women grew up in a religious culture that teaches them that they have a particular place in subservience to men. And so that religious culture is trying to assert itself again in this country. It's why the rise of Christian nationalism. It's why people like J.D. Vance wear their religion, and Mike Johnson wear their religion on their sleeves. And that particular form of religion, and I'm a Christian pastor, so I get it. I became a Christian in an evangelical organization a long time ago, and so I kind of know what I speak of, and that tradition has a sense of how the world ought to be structured, God's design for the world, and women have a place in it, and men have a higher place in it. And so when you're a white man at this point, and you see the diversity that's happening in our culture, and you see women rising up, strong, intelligent, beautiful, powerful women who have voices and are making a difference in the world, that can scare you, and it breaks.
The tyranny of DEI.
Exactly. Yeah, the tyranny.
One football player.
Yeah. So it's. I think we have to consider the fact that many of these women feel like they're behaving in godly ways even though it doesn't sit right with them. But there's also the phenomenon of those women who are hiding their true feelings because the culture in which they live would judge them for that. So it's the same as LGBTQ people 50 years ago being in the closet. So these women are, to a certain degree, in the closet because the culture that they live in, what they're steeped in, what they live in every day in their families, in their churches, in their communities, don't value them in the way that they should be. So they do it out of fear to a large degree.
My wife was having a regular exchange with a woman that identifies as a Christian conservative. And, over time, this lady started to have a real respect for my wife's faith. And she told her with straight face, like, I didn't think it was possible to be a Democrat and love Jesus. And talking to you has made me feel differently. And she was dead serious. Right? And so I feel where you're coming from, Chuck. Ladies, talk to us about the agenda. Some of the things that you feel it necessary to cover in this rally. Obviously, there's a lot of places you can go with it, but reproductive rights, we know that that's on the agenda. But what are some of the things that you hope to hammer home in this rally? And let's just say you're speaking to women who are in the audience who may be saying, I don't know if I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. What's on the agenda in order to really make the case for the necessity of this rally?
So my big thing that always pops in my head is equal pay. I mean, it is 2024. Women still get paid 84 cents to the dollar that a man gets paid. And it's less for women of color. So it is crazy. So that is one big thing. It's like, how can we be okay with that? It's like, so that is definitely the one big thing, on my mind. And even to childcare. I mean, high quality, affordable childcare. Where is it at? It's still, before we got on, we were talking about the teacher shortage, and childcare is the same thing. That crisis has been around for so long, and it's still just kind of flowing around. Everyone talks about it, but there's no action. Where are our legislators? Where are the policies to fix this crisis? So I think those are definitely two of the big things. And even too, I'm ranting now, but even too with childcare, it's like, women and families in general, you have to make impossible decisions when it comes to childcare, and it's a lose-lose. It's like you either go to work and you pay an astronomical amount for childcare, so basically you're making no money then because it just balances out, or someone, typically the mother figure, has to then watch that child, so then she can't go to work, so then you're not making money there. So it's just like it's a lose-lose situation, and once again, the crisis is talked about, but not policies or fixes to the crisis get talked about.
Right. So women's pay, that's one issue. Absolutely. What else is on the agenda? What are we trying to hammer home in this rally?
I think what we're really trying to focus on also are like the everyday woman's issues. So like Kristy brought up housing, and people are just concerned with like, how are they going to make ends meet? Like, inflation's crazy right now, and the pay gap, if you're a woman, you're not making as much as you should probably. So people are concerned with how they're going to make ends meet, how they're going to put food on the table, things like that. And of course, like, how are they going to build their family? So reproductive rights is like a huge focus of the rally, but obviously not the only thing. There are a series of different issues that we want to cover.
Mm-hmm. I would love to hear the ladies talk a little bit about reproductive rights in regards to what seems to be a part of the plan, 2025 plan, that will not only seek to put in place a national abortion ban, but also bans on contraceptives. And with the goal of having us make more babies so that we can have more workers, so that we can outpopulate the minorities, so that it's convoluted, crazy thinking, but the ban on contraceptive is also part of the agenda.
I just wanted to say, J.D. Vance recently said, have your grandparents help out a little bit more. Yeah. My mom would be like, excuse me.
Me too.
Right.
It doesn't have that.
Right. I mean, when I had my two oldest girls, my mom was still a full-time working woman at the post office, and she was a single mom. So I mean, that was just not a possibility. But to kind of talk about what Chuck is saying, we talk about Project 2025, and this 900-some page document, and there's a lot that talks about controlling women. Yep. And one of the biggest things that they want to control is how, when, where, if we have children. And that's goes back to like what this rally is about, is making our own choices. We need to be trusted. Trust us. Trust us to make our own choices about our body. Trust us to make our own choices about our career. Trust us that we should be paid equally. Treat us equally. Give us the opportunities, and that means giving us childcare. That means giving us maternity, parental leave. It goes with everything. I mean, it just encompasses everything. But when you read that Project 2025, and I don't care how many times I get a flyer that says Trump has nothing to do with this,
Which has been debunked thoroughly.
It's ridiculous. I mean, the foreword is by your vice president nominee. Let's be like, how stupid do you think we are?
Well, I do think we're stupid.
Yes. I know that there are so many feelings surrounding reproductive rights, whether it be religious feelings, whether it be personal feelings. But the biggest thing has to come back to the Constitution and giving us our freedom, and again, trusting women to make the decisions that we need to make. And Project 2025 will take all that away, and we'll do some scary stuff.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched The Handmaid's Tale, I mean, I feel like that is what it wants us to be.
Absolutely.
And great series, terrifying scenario, right?
I haven't seen it past the second season.
Oh, it is.
Neither. I can't watch it.
I know, I get
nauseating.
scared because it's on, like, to your point, it's like almost too realistic nowadays, and it's very, very scary. And the Project 2025, it's like, it gives me the chills even thinking about it, because it's like, that is a real document that Republicans, Donald Trump, JD Vance, they wrote, they are backing, once again, as much as Donald Trump says he's not a part of it, it's his whole playbook, literally, any speech, any rally he has, you can find any of the talking points right in Project 2025. But yeah, it should remain a TV show, a fake TV show.
Amen. Well, let me tie together both of these points, because it's not the first time I've heard the Handmaid's Tale, right, comparison. And the interesting thing about Project 2025, and Kamala Harris said it, she said, can you believe they committed this to writing? That you put it in writing pre-election? But here's what it does. For people that would push back against what you said, well, this is like the Handmaid's Tale. In order to, it's like this denial of, they would never do that. What this document shows you, and take it from someone who grew up in a religion that bends over backwards to control your life. It is living proof that there are millions of dollars, to your point, Mary, and thousands of man and woman hours going into ways to figure out, thinking about ways to control you and I. Project 2025 is written proof that this is an agenda of some very powerful people, and it is absolutely scary. Open question, ladies. This obsession with controlling the bodies of women, what is that about? Give me the conversation over a cup of coffee and a cup of tea. What in the hell? What is that
They're
about?
all trying hard to get to the microphone right now, Marcus.
It's the craziest thing.
What is that?
I just think, as a mother of three, I find it so insane, because even though I'm married to a great man, he is a phenomenal father. At the end of the day, that pregnancy took a toll on my body. It takes a toll on my mental health. I'm the one that had to be cut open to birth this child. You know what I mean? I'm the one that had to be sewn up or stapled to, you know what I mean? And so, why do you want? Do they wish they had some of that? I just am so confused, because, I'm happy to, that sacrifice is something I would do, obviously, several times, because I have, 3 kids, and it's just beautiful. But why do they want such control of it? What is it? And I don't even know if I know that answer. Yeah. I don't understand it.
It's hard to wrap your head around it, because it's just one of those things where it's like, it's just weird. And I know that's a very, but it's like, I don't know. And then it's like, then it goes into, okay, so you birthed the baby, and then it's like, now we don't care. It's like, all right, well, and it's like, what? And it's a very odd thing. And that's the thing. It's like, their control is just with the woman and the, giving birth. But then after you give birth, They don't care about housing it. They don't care about, getting it a good, properly funded education. There's nothing. It's just like, well, good luck out there now. Like, we got you docked down in our book that you had a baby. So we'll follow up, in 18 years. And it's like, what? Like, it is so, I don't even, like, to Kristy, I don't even know how to answer
like,
that.
They want to, kind of like what you talked about. Is it like creating this, almost like an army? Is it like, do you know what I mean? Like, okay, have lots of babies, but also I don't really want anything to do with that afterwards. And then once you do, make sure that they're also just like you and just like how we want.
And we won't help you any way or shape or form, but
they want specific people to have more babies. They want white couples to have more babies.
Hitleresque,
They want
right?
at least middle class people to be having more babies. People who can like really afford to have a lot of babies. Those are the people who they want to have.
Yeah, because Chuck, when I'm listening to these people, when I read Project 2025, and I'm almost done, and man, my goodness, man, it is a commitment, but it's so fascinating because again, it's very intentional, right?
You don't put all that effort into something and not use it.
There it is, Coach Walls. Nobody draws up a playbook and then doesn't use it. There's no such thing. But as I'm reading this thing and I'm listening to J.D. Vance, and I'm mindful of how J.D. Vance got on the ticket, because it ain't like it was Trump's pick. And I know that, Peter, what's my man's last name? It's on the Teal. Peter Teal was backing up J.D. Vance from the beginning. He backed up his venture capitalist firm and all. I'm like, I think J.D. Vance is the guy for these people. Not even so much Trump. Trump is just the guy who will do anything to get elected. But when you listen to J.D. Vance and you read Project 2025, it's like, I'm feeling like J.D. Vance is really their guy. And Trump, what are you thinking on that?
Go for it.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. If you look at the recent Supreme Court justice rulings, J.D. Vance actually had a play in some of that. And so he is that guy. I mean, he is the person who is going to be able to make sure that these policies get implemented. So he's the policymaker. And I think there was deals made to make sure that he was the VP, because he is not the most attractive VP candidate.
Lots of money given in his in support of his candidacy.
and work behind the scenes to make Project 2025 and some of the recent rulings happen. That's J.D. Vance, and so he's the go-to guy for that. And I hope it backfires.
So the significance, you mentioned it at the outset, Kristy, the significance of this, and as I sit here with my I'm speaking painting next to me, and it's been up there since she whooped Mike Pence in that debate, boy. She took her belt off. Don't you ever meet me in a debate again. And she did Trump worse than she did.
Mic drop.
I gotta say, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, I don't care if you are MAGA, that was the worst whooping. The most profound whooping. And it was, he had a death grip on that podium. His face was turning when she went after crowd size, he was like, how
That was a
dare
turning
you?
point to me.
That was on purpose. I love that.
And if you didn't believe, and some people try to say this, I just don't know if I could see her as president. She looked very Thatcher-esque that day.
Yeah, and that was a huge thing that debate proved is, for some of the non-believers, I don't know, I don't know if she can be president. Honey, did you watch that debate?
Yeah.
She is very presidential.
She showed that she's more than capable.
Exactly, and that was such a huge moment, and I loved watching it every moment. I'm like, get it, girl. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could tell right off the bat how uncomfortable he was. Well, and I think that's the thing, too, is powerful women and empowered women make Donald Trump and his Goonies and the Republican Party very uncomfortable. So I think that's maybe going back to, a previous question, maybe that's one of the things, too, about control is because they're, bottom line, they're scared. They're scared of powerful women. And I think we've proved what we are capable of, even going back hundreds of years ago to the suffrage movement. And it is starting to, it is happening again now. Women are not going to be silenced. And so I think now they're scrambling like, okay, how do we do more control? More control. We'll just add more control. And it's like, no, we are going to rally and not take it.
Yeah, it's the thing that you do when you feel like you're losing control and you're losing status. They will not replace us. So the great replacement theory grows out of that fear. And fear's at the root of so many of the things that are going on in our culture right now. We live in a society that's designed to make us afraid, to want more than we have, to be unsatisfied with ourselves. The capitalist system does that. You got to buy this, you got to buy that, you got to own this, you got to own that. The political system does that. We're going to make you fear the other party so that you'll vote for us. The religious system does that, and I come out of that system. The religious system makes you feel like you're not good enough. You need a Lord and Savior. You got to have thus and such, whatever your religion is, in order to be whole and complete. And so we're operating in that milieu and control for the group that has been in control. Losing any of that control is a powerful motivating factor. And they're using the fact that there is a particular worldview that many people in this society have. They're using that worldview against those very people, because you can be sure that this guy who lives at Mar-a-Lago is not on your side. If you are middle class, or if you're impoverished in this country, or if you're a woman in this country, he doesn't care about you. And now he's being used by the 2025 people.
There it is.
And that's the thing that a lot of us don't recognize, that Trump is a cipher. Trump is... So why J.D. Vance? Because when Trump dies, he's 78.
Or is taken out.
Mm-hmm. Now our guy's the boss.
Right.
And I think that's why. And so J.D. Vance doesn't have a center. A couple of years ago, he's telling us how terrible Trump is. Only idiots vote for Trump.
Yes.
So, but
Now he's running with them.
But J.D. Vance is owned by the Peter Thiels of the world. So what we see happening is the oligarchy worldwide is what's asserting itself now. So Trump is in bed with the Saudis. He's in bed with the Russians. He's in bed with billionaires around Elon Musk. And those are the people who are asserting control over our society. They're very smart because they're doing it so behind the scenes that we're not seeing it. And they're taking advantage of people's fears. And I think so it's bigger than just women's issues. Sure. But women's issues are at the heart of it right now.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask Raven. Obviously, you are a young woman of color, right? Talk about the significance of that, because there are so many other things that are exciting about this. But again, Kristy pointed out in the beginning, this is a woman of color. I genuinely, I believed when Hillary ran, I thought, well, if we're going to have a woman president, this is our best shot. And obviously the biggest silver bullet for her is the Clinton name. I mean, her husband, it was just too much baggage, right, in my opinion. What does this mean to you, and what are you hearing from other young women that look like you about this ascension of Kamala Harris?
Listen, if I could vote for Hillary, I can definitely vote for Kamala. But I think from what I've seen is that myself and other black women and other women of color have just been for Kamala from the start. We were like, all right, we can do this. And I saw like a complete change happen from when Biden stepped down to when he endorsed Kamala. Huge change happened for like everybody. Like all of the Democrats that I know, everybody was like, all right, we can do this. It wasn't like when Hillary ran. When Hillary ran, everybody had these questions. They were like, I don't know, stuff like that. But when Kamala announced that she was running, everybody was like behind her on that, especially women of color. I heard that she got on like a Zoom call with like a whole bunch of women of color and raised like a bunch of money like right off the bat, like right after she announced her presidency. So I've just seen like a lot of support coming from other women of color, no questions asked. But I've also seen a lot of non-women of color who are like, oh, I don't know, I don't really like her, but they don't really have any explanation for why they don't like her, which I'm like, well, maybe the answer is some bias that you're holding that you are unaware of. If you can't, if you can't figure out why you don't like her, maybe it's these biases that you hold, because everybody has them.
And the Zoom calls that you're making reference to, and there were multiple, black women for Kamala, black men for Kamala, trans women for Kamala, all of these different groups. The one that broke the internet was white women for Kamala. Right? And so there's that. Kristy, let me come to you real quick. There's an old church saying, whatever's for you is for you, right? And at the end of the day, I genuinely believe in that. It's like, listen, if it's mine, the universe will work it out so that it lands on my doorstep in the most unlikely fashion. You couldn't, Matt and I were just talking about this. You couldn't write this script. If you wrote this script, I would look at you like, dude, this is so far-fetched. Let me get this straight, right? The way she became the candidate and all the events leading up to it, I'm like, if she loses, I will be so surprised because it just feels ordained at this point. Too many otherworldly things had to happen for her to be in this position. Talk about just the environment that led to her, because even with Biden stepping down, nobody ever believed that was going to happen.
You know, everyone called. I mean, a lot of people think that the local party has like direct ties to the state party, direct ties to the it's not really like that. They're really just like, they kind of just say, all right, do good. You know, good luck out there. Good luck out there. We'll talk to you when we want to. So people were calling and like, is he going to step down? He has to step down. We get long emails. We've had people send letters like Biden needs to do something or Biden better not step down. I mean, there was a lot of feelings from Democrats on both sides about Biden, what Biden should do. And as soon as Biden stepped down, and shortly after, with that endorsement of Kamala, it was like Raven was saying, everyone was on board. I didn't get one email that disagreed. I didn't get one letter. I mean, there might have been a quick moment where people, you know, questioned it, but if you were voting for the Democratic Party nominee, everyone was behind Kamala.
And from a political science standpoint, someone please set the record straight on this. Well, if she's going to do all of those things, she would have done it. She's been there 3.5 years. Can someone please speak to that?
Politics doesn't always work that way. I mean, it's not well, dictatorships do. If you want to get something done, you can do it if you're a dictator, but not in a democracy. She has a lot of people who she has to work with. So.
And she's not the president.
She's not the president.
She's not the president.
She's the
Yeah.
vice president. It's the president's agenda, which, by the way, is not a bad agenda. But to what Raven's saying, and there's a lot of red tape. I'm still waiting on my loans to get forgiven for my student. You know, I'm a teacher and, you know, trying to make ends meet, and, you know, I need my loan to be forgiven. And so, you know, there's some disappointment, but it's not that the agenda is not good. It's that it's hard to pass, especially when you have we have the Supreme Court, especially the way that it's set up right now. So I think that, okay, one, this isn't, you know, the agenda is not Harris's agenda, though she's supportive of it. She's the vice president. It's a good agenda, but we need to have the right people in office to make the things happen. Yeah. So there's a lot of great things out there, but we need to have the right people in office, meaning that when people go to vote, don't stop at the president.
Absolutely.
Don't stop filling in that oval there. Go all the way down, turn it over, and go all the way back down. You need to vote up and down that ballot to make sure that the right people are in office so that things can get done from the local level all the way to the top.
Yeah, because presidential election, obviously very important, but the things that matter the most are going to be like local and state elections.
Yeah, and specifically too in Erie County, you know, this is everyone's favorite buzzword, but Erie County is a bellwether. And I mean, even, you know, we talked about Hillary Clinton, you know, she didn't come to Erie County and that really hurt her. And so, you know, I'm excited for Kamala to come to Erie whenever that may be. But specifically, you know, local elections matter. And I think people forget that. And specifically to Erie County residents, it's like we need to show up for Kamala and for Tim Walz because Erie County matters. Like we're a big deal. We are like we're pretty powerful, you know, when it comes to deciding presidential elections, state elections, and we need to use that power. And you know, we talked about that energy and take that energy to the polls.
What Kristy mentioned about voting down ballot for the right people is so important. Do you remember when Obama was elected? The Republicans said, we're just not going to approve anything he wants. We're going to stymie everything. Could be the greatest thing in the world for the people of the country, but we're going to stop it. There's a recent Republican senator or congressman, I can't remember which, who just came out saying, that was our agenda. Stop everything that they want. And I think that that's going to continue to be the agenda unless we have a majority that can overcome that roadblock of Republicans who just don't want any success for Democrats. So hence you have Trump saying, nope, we're not going to pass that. We're not going to pass that immigration bill because that would be bad for me. And it's all about them and their control and their power. So you have to think about voting. I've never done this until a couple of elections ago, but I voted straight ticket for the last couple of elections just because it doesn't matter. If you're on the right now, you kind of have to do fealty to Trump in order to be elected. So that tells me I can't have you being in office. I can't vote for you. Mm-hmm. So down ticket matters hugely in this election.
Yeah.
Or bigly, as I like
Bigly,
to say.
I like that word. They're talking about vice presidents, and it's not lost to me that every living past vice president, Democrat or Republican, is supporting Kamala Harris. It's not lost to me that the one opportunity that Mike Pence had to show some independence was certifying the election. He did, right? Showing me, at least, that if he had the power to change some of the other foolishness this man was doing, he probably would have, but he didn't have the power to do it. And so in Kamala Harris's position as vice president, it's like, dude, there's only so much I agree with the agenda overall, first of all. Let me just say that. But the things that I would change, I'm not in a position to do it.
Right. And the obstructionist nature of the Republican Party at this point is also a huge part of why things haven't been done. We haven't accomplished the things that we set out to accomplish. It's not just that she was vice president and not president, but there's a whole other series of things.
Yeah. So bring us to the rally. Talk to us about the players, how it came together. Let's button that thing up right now. Give us an idea of what we can expect, because I know with women in leadership, Erie has more than a few, right? How did this come together? Who were some of the drivers of this, and what can we expect?
Oh my gosh! So
without ruining any surprises.
So, like I said, we have some local folks that are going to come together to talk about some of the issues that are important to women that are not just reproductive rights. Though we are going to have a doctor who was a former Republican who was denied an abortion originally and had to travel. So she will be talking, and I think that is going to be really important because it saved her the ability to have kids in the future. So, so we're going to have some really powerful speakers there. But I mean, think of the convention center. I mean, think of the vibe that you're going to get there. It is a huge room. We have one of the largest rooms there. If you did attend the Fetterman rally here, it's that size doubled. So and we have a stage. We have 2 screens on each side. I mean, it is a production because we deserve it to be that. We deserve to get the goosebumps. We deserve to chant and feel like, oh yeah, like this is a powerful moment. But as we started planning, it just kind of like snowballed and got bigger and bigger and bigger. At first we were like, okay, let's just go to Perry Square. Not that just Perry Square is a bad thing, but like, oh no. Then it started growing. I'm like, that's not big enough. And then we're like, all right, let's go to Frontier. And then we're like, oh, we're gonna get a great speaker, and they prefer to have it to be safe. So Frontier wasn't maybe the best spot for that. So now it's at the convention center. So it's just been growing and growing and growing, and the excitement with it has. And I think women are going to be the folks who decide this election. We are the largest voting bloc. There's 51% of the population is women, and
you show up in larger numbers.
We show up at the polls.
We are committed, and I think this rally is going to show that. And I think it's going to be what is going to give that excitement up until Election Day. And I'm super pumped for it.
Before I throw it to these other 2 ladies, Chuck brought up this, you got contacted by Cindy Purvis, right? And so I'm thinking about Cindy, very nice woman, I love her. And then I look at the women here. That's a couple of different generations being represented, even just between you 4. Talk about the generational diversity that you expect at this rally.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be all over the board. I think it's going to be, young little girls, that maybe, you always see the pictures of, the young girls like watching the TV and seeing Kamala. And it's just such a heartwarming thing, to see, because representation matters. And so, seeing Kamala now be the presidential nominee it's very exciting, to watch. So yeah, no, I think it'll be all over the board. From people my grandmother's age all the way down to, Kristy's
to our
baby's
28-year-old
age.
sister sitting here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah. But it is cool to watch that, the everyone coming together and everyone, being together, empowering each other, and to, not like, well, yeah, I'd say like almost passing the torch to us. Like we've, because some of the older generations, we've done the work. You guys need to step up. Let's go. And we're here. We're ready to go. We're ready to, fight with them and, bring into other younger generations as well.
Yeah. The overlap with some of these other women's groups or these women's organizations from different marginalized communities. How has that worked out? Has there been an intentional outreach to groups from these different backgrounds, and what does that look like? I'm always curious about these things.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've definitely everything is intersectional, and so we know that we want everyone to be involved, and that also includes men. I think it's incredibly important to know that a lot of movements could not be possible without men, especially the women's suffrage. Now, women are leading it, but we also, right? Yeah. So women are leading it, but we need the men's support. Absolutely. So we get the question all the time, can men come? Please come. Please show us that you support us. We want to see men there. So, but yeah, we've been reaching out. We think that, of course, women of color, young people, the colleges, ironically, a lot of the older generation already are probably the first up to bat, like they want to come. But so we have to really push it out to the younger folks. But I mean, it has to be intentionally done. They have to know that we want them there, men, young people, people of color, the older generation, because again, it's not going to be successful without everyone included.
You hit the point. The women are still leading it.
Sure.
That's my pet peeve. I mean, even down to women's basketball, I'm watching WNBA more. I've always been a women's college basketball fan. It irks me to see so many male coaches. I'm like, until I see this many women coaching in men's basketball, I'm bothered by that. Even when I see multicultural churches, people, well, my church is multicultural. What color is the pastor? What color is the who's making the decisions, right? Because at the end of the day, if the decision makers aren't that, then I'm kind of like, I'm halfway impressed. So it matters to me, at least, that women are making a decision. Everybody can come, but we decide how this thing flows, right? Right. So I'm excited for that. And so.
Oh, no, sorry. No, I was just going to say, so it just made me think, you brought up, that men are invited. So yesterday we had a Road to the Rally fundraiser in anticipation of it to raise money for the rally, which, September 28th. But there was a guy there, and he had a shirt on that said "Old White Dudes for Kamala 2024." And I went up to him and I was like, first of all, that's amazing. But second of all, get more old white dudes to come with us, because once again, women are leading it, and as we should, but we need everyone to come together and meet the moment, because it is such a powerful thing. And so we're excited.
So one of the great things about Kamala's candidacy is that I think one of the things that happened in the immediate aftermath of Biden endorsing her and stepping down is people thought, maybe this is that time when the torch gets passed. A white guy, an old white guy, passes it to a younger woman who is a woman of color, who is the daughter of two immigrants. I mean, she's like the American dream in the flesh, who is well-educated, who is intelligent and powerful. And so that's an aspect of it. She brings multiple constituencies together in her person. And I think that's not only in her person, but in her marriage. So her husband has found a way to say, yeah, I'm an old white guy, and I'm with her. And to not lose himself in that, to be himself in the midst of it, to show what it means to be a man in the 21st century. You don't have to be controlling everybody around you. You can be part of the group. And so I think just the whole vibe of her candidacy is just beautiful. And a harbinger of what we could be going forward.
Her story is uniquely American in so many ways, isn't it? It cracked me up when, I didn't know she was black, and suddenly she's black. I'm like, she is Rosa Parks. She's Rosa Parks soror, dumbass.
She's an AKA, like, please. Which, I mean, you don't have to be black to be an AKA.
Right,
but like, she knew.
Right. Coretta Scott King was an AKA. Come on, she went to Howard, for God's sake.
Literally. Like, she just finally decided to be black.
Right.
No, she's been black.
Part of that dynamic though with Trump, she just turned black, is that
That's black. Yes,
white-
sacred black.
You got the impression down.
The
I don't.
emphasis is
Yeah, I got the
black.
hand thing, but that's all I got. But the thing about that was that I think it was a betrayal of, or a revelation of, the ignorance of so many white men.
Yes.
We just don't know. You bring up Howard University. I guarantee you that half of white men in this country have no idea that it's a historic black college. And so when you talk about those kinds of things, you have to explain them to people because they don't know. So Kamala brings so much to the table, but so many of us are ignorant of it because we haven't experienced any of it. And that's a big part of what's happening in our culture today. The people at this table right now, you all are raising awareness of the power and the competence of women, of people of color, of the LGBT community, of all of the marginalized communities, and reminding us that we are better
That's
when
right.
we're all in it together.
That's right. That's right. So as we head to the finish line, Raven, speak from the heart. Now, give us, the listeners are listening, what would you tell people about this upcoming election, the importance of this rally? What are your thoughts? And we'll go around the table before we close it out.
I would say that voting is integral to our place in this democracy. The democracy can't stand if we don't use our voting privileges, our voting rights, I should say. I always like to say use it or we lose it because, Trump has been he's been talking a lot about things that sound a lot like dictatorship. And I've seen polls of like percentages of people voters who like don't really agree with democracy. They do kind of want a dictatorship, and that's worrisome to me. So I think that, as a citizen in this democracy, voting is the first step. It's a necessary step. You need to get out and you need to show your opinions on things. Or like Kamala said, my favorite line from the debate, Trump got fired by 81 million people. So you can fire people, you can hire people. We have that kind of power, so it needs to be used. But also even past, just election day, we need to be active in our communities. We need to be on our elected officials, make sure they're doing what they need to do, and make sure that they're still working for the people. So I say that would be the most important. I would also say that, because we were talking about how some women are, they have to be quiet about their support for Kamala. Your vote is your own. Everybody gets one vote. Your husband or your boyfriend doesn't get two votes because he's with you. You get your own vote. So, do what you got to do. We're just very excited for this rally. We're very excited to organize around this cause. And we're hoping that it'll help push the momentum to November 5th.
And just to add the end of that quote that you just mentioned a second ago, and she said, and he obviously is having a hard time processing. It's like, wow. Before I go to Mary for her parting shots, Kamala HQ, when it's all said and done, I got to meet the team behind her social. They have been hitting him with lefts and right. This team is not afraid to go after him. And they have been poking and poking and poking, and it all came to a crescendo in this debate. Mary, what do you want to say to the listener?
Yeah, I think kind of going off of what Raven said, voting is our one true superpower that we have. And one of the things, when I'm canvassing, knocking on doors, oftentimes I'll hear from people, well, the government has left me behind, specifically, when I'm talking to the BIPOC community or LGBTQ community. And, right off the bat, I kind of want to say, look, I get it. I understand. Actually, I should say I don't understand it because I know my white privilege. But what, I think one of the big messages with this rally that we have is that Kamala is an inspiration, and we have a new movement, and that is not going to leave you behind. And while historically, yes, that has happened, and it's a horrible thing, but we are now moving forward. We are progressing with Kamala Harris as our leader, and everyone, everyone's invited. We're creating a safe, inclusive space, and your voice matters, your vote matters, and so come on out with us. There is a place for you in our movement, and we can rally together for women's rights.
Kristy Gnibus, and then we'll let Chuck give the parting shots to get us out of here.
So September 28th, 1 p.m., Bayfront Convention Center. Be there, be square. No, we really need you there. But this is the moment that we're going to decide what our future really looks like. What kind of future do you want for yourself? What kind of future do you want for your children or for your grandchildren? A lot of people say, well, it's not about liking somebody. Well, okay, sure, I don't like Trump, but it's not just about not liking him. I don't like the future under Trump. I don't like what that looks like for my children, for my 2 girls. I don't like what that looks like for my young son. I don't like what that looks like for me. And so when we are going to the ballot box and we're looking at the folks that we need to choose, think about that future for yourself. Think about that future for your community, and of course you have to vote. Right? Don't leave anything on the table. We have the great opportunity here in Pennsylvania to vote by mail if you need to. I always request my mail-in ballot because I'm always scared something's going to happen on the day of the election. So I like to have it ready to go. So make a plan to vote. Make a plan to vote, whether it be voting early or voting at the polls, and then make a plan also to vote, or not to vote, of course to vote, but to come to the rally, because we need you there. Everyone needs to be there to support each other, and again, this movement is not possible without everyone at the table.
And if you're one of those people talking about it's not about liking the candidate, raise the bar back up to where it should be. I didn't vote for Mitt Romney, but he was an honorable man. I didn't vote for John McCain, but he was an honorable man. Come on, people. They have lowered the bar so much for this man. Chuck, get us out of here before I get on my soapbox.
We do soapbox well here. All I want to say is here to what the 3 women here have said. I continue to be impressed and amazed by the quality of leadership of women in this community. And if you sit at tables like this, as I do on a regular basis, you have no fear of women in leadership in the future. This is a shared project. So come to the rally not just because you support women's rights. Come to the rally because you support the future that they have been talking about at this table. So I will be there, and I hope to see you there.
Amen. All right. Well, listen, that's it for our show today. Tune in next time for more discussion and analysis with local and national guests. Remember, the next 2.0 streams on Fridays on all major podcast platforms, and the 4th Sunday of the month at 4 p.m., which is on WQLN PBS NPR 91.3 FM. There is a new feature if you want to leave a message, comment, or suggestion for the show. You can call the next hotline at 814-240-8816. We look forward to hearing from you. Marcus Atkinson, come and join us again so that you can hear about what's next for our communities and our democracy. Peace.